Hello, hello. Sorry about that, I'd forgotten that the chat window hadn't been configured. Hi there. So, this is a shorter and more experimental format of the stream, where what essentially has happened is that I've basically thought I need to research more into the topic that I'm delving into, in this case rigging, and I figure that because I want to be able to reuse the rig, and I think it's more worth actually making it more professional than I usually make them, which is usually just for character rendering, so basically something that will get it posed. But since I want to be able to reuse it for a number of projects, I figure that it's worth looking into and researching more deeply. So this format then is more like I'm going to learn this sort of stuff off stream and apply it, and then when the stream is scheduled, we'll basically look at the changes that I made. So it's much more of a shorter retrospective version of the stream. Okay, so what we're going to be looking at today is how this has changed since last time, yesterday, and what we've done and what's currently in effect. So last time we went ahead and tried to IK rig the arm and tried to start the setup on the legs. Now, the thing that made me sort of question this is why, for instance, I wasn't doing an IK and FK chain that the arm could be switched between. And I thought initially, oh, maybe I might not need it, or I'll adjust it later. But I figure, there are so many things that I'm questioning as I'm going through them. Maybe it's worth, just updating my knowledge on the subject. So there's a resource in particular that I think has been really strong for me, and just in the one day where I've been looking at it, is the Maya Rigging Fundamentals course on Pluralsight. I believe I have a link in the description if you're interested, and I know a fair bit about rigging since I've done this kind of study in the past, but I felt that it's worth getting a much more professional and up-to-date resource. So I know what a reverse foot is, I know what an IK chain is, I know what a spline IK is, but I wanted to be able to find if there was a more professional application of using them, and where things might work out better. In other words, I'm basically just trying to learn it in a more professional way, but since obviously you can't really ad-lib after that if this is the process that we're in, then it's a bit useless for me to flounder around for 2 hours trying to guess what the guy's gonna do. So let's talk about what we did actually get done. So in that particular course, he starts off from the legs, so we're going to do so as well. I've always found that the legs were kind of easier, and what he ended up with is a reverse foot and IK, which if we show wherever it's gone, oh, I had a layer for it, or I did, yeah, there we go. It's been renamed wrong. There we go. Right, so the reverse foot they have is a little different to what I'm used to. So what I'm used to when I went about learning it is that if we cut from about here, that is what I'm used to. So it would be a reverse foot that starts from the heel, moves into the toe, moves into the ball of the foot, and then finally into the ankle. Whereas what they have is actual banking control as well. I mean, it's a pretty simple thing. It's just, sorry, it's just 2 extra bones that apply on the sides. So what happens when you manipulate the control, sorry, it'll look a bit weird. Let me take the LP off. What happens when you manipulate the control is that it rotates the bone around. Unfortunately, I think there's something still wrong here, where it's not parented the proxy geometry correctly. I've only just done that, so let me try it like this. There we go. That makes a little bit more sense now. So the actual angle of the bones will change, like, and lean across like that. I'll look into why the proxy geometry hadn't bound properly, but I assume it's because it's using an old, like, parent control or something. We're not in the habit of fixing it here now. We'll fix it off stream. Anyway, so that's a bit different. And I followed a like slightly more standardized way of making the control. In this case, it is really just a NURB circle that's been stretched along. But what we do have, I think we can bring the geometry back up. I'm hoping this bit will work at least. Is that we have a control for the reverse foot. So I think that this bone might be like too aggressively placed. So at the moment it's forced onto the bottom. But that's what the the geometry is for. It's so that we can actually see the deformation. Oops, I'm manipulating the wrong control. So when we manipulate it upwards, the leg will go and turn with it. Obviously, because we're using proxy geometry, it's not going to deform, but it's just to give us an approximation as to how it's behaving and if there's any issues. Got the same for the upper area as well, isn't it? Sorry, the ball. So over there, again, I think it's a little aggressively placed and it may be worth tweaking, but I want to see how that's going to behave with the heel in particular. Right, so we've got the heel rise control, which is manipulated just by the connection editor. So there's no real limit in terms of that yet. So you can do something slightly impossible right now, but we'll look into like adding, limitations and stuff onto that. That's not difficult. Heel pivot. Right, so that behaves slightly strangely to me. I think that that is twisting in some way, and I think the reason why it's twisting is because when he added the controls that the reverse foot is controlling the main skeleton via parented IKs. So I think that there's something that I've done wrong here that is causing this to like twist along. So I'll have to revisit that. It's a good thing I did have the proxy geometry just now, and it's obviously like I've only got this much in terms of proxy geometry. I think it's worth maybe just making the proxy geometry as I go along, because the model is quite large and dense, particularly over in hair, so it would be quite difficult to go over and make all of the proxy geometry when really I should just make proxy geometry for what I am currently testing. That seems to make sense to me. Okay, so with that said, okay, so long as we can figure out the twisting here and what's causing it, or rather what's not causing the proxy geometry to follow it correctly, then we should be able to work out what to do there, because it's going to be quite interesting when that deforms with like the actual proper geometry. But at the very least, the actual the actual leg IK appears to work correctly. So no matter how far I lift it, like I could even go to something impossible, and it will still it won't flip, which is definitely a plus. And this was something that I actually learned. Yeah, it will flip there because I presume the IK over there is doing something wrong, but the actual leg itself does not flip. So that was something that I had learned when I was doing this, and the way that they achieved this was via a parented pole vector. So when we actually look for the pole vector, if I can find it, over here is a locator that serves as the pole vector, but since it is not intended to be directly controllable, it is more meant to correct the leg. So this serves as the pole vector for this IK chain here, and it is offset to the right, and what corrects it back, if we look for the actual IK handle, like out, there's a twist control which has been set to 90 here, but in order to actually handle a different leg twist, so if we bring this up here and we wanted the leg to twist to the right, or knee twist rather, we have a control on the actual foot control that will manipulate the twist via a driven key. So in order to be able to rotate the knee, we've got this to do that with, and that's assuming that the leg itself isn't already twisting that way, and that seems to work. Okay, so that seems fine enough. The only thing then is, like, I want to know why this bit will twist in extremity, and I will study the series on the leg, just like the foot and the leg, just to check why this IK does that. I presume it is because it is a pole vectored IK that does not have its own pole vector assigned. So if we look at the IK for, I believe it is the ankle area that is having this problem, this one, right? So this has a pole vector that is currently pointing upwards, and my guess is that when this is rotated to an upside down state, the pole vector no longer targets correctly, so it continues to do this. Yeah, I think that is exactly it. So it may be a case that there needs either the IK setup was wrong and it needs to be the other type, the other solver. Let me see. I wonder if I can actually look at that now. I don't know if you can actually change a solver once it is on. IK rotate plane, so no. Okay, so the IK I think would have to be created again. That's not exactly a problem. It's trivial, so that's fine. I'm learning that rigs are not, they are manipulatable. Like, you can edit a lot of things about them whilst you're doing it, so it's not quite as rigid as I thought. So that's been quite productive to learn, and I presume that that whole IK setup here, once that is corrected, then the feet will bank correctly. So yeah, I think that probably is the case. That and these two probably aren't parented correctly right now. Oh. And I believe that because I've just manipulated something, that's why that's gone slightly nuts there. Let's see. Oh dear. How interesting. Back again. Ah. Right. Something has changed that has meant that this IK has incorrectly is behaving incorrectly right now. So okay. IK is such a interesting beast, unfortunately. Right, rotate 0 that. Yeah, something's caused it to go slightly out of sync. That's okay. Alright then, but that's okay, we'll fix it. Okay, the next stage is that I'll be moving on to as well after I fix that, is that I'm currently working on the spine at the moment, and we have set up a very basic spline rig. The only thing that's different to what I normally do about it is that I normally allow the auto curve to be made, because that's how I was taught, but it appears that the way this guy does it is that he actually just he creates the curve himself. So I've done that this time, and then we'll go ahead and make the controls that actually control these clusters. Okay, but that's some work in progress. We're gonna have to redo this part because I think there's something that's gone wrong where something is not resetting correctly. When I manipulated a bone here though, it did reset properly. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting when the rig breaks. Yes, it seems to be something. I definitely think it's down to this IK chain, which is very different to what I am used to. What I'm used to with rigging the reverse foot onto the main, like, you know, the actual feet bones, is that I'd be doing this via orient constraints, but this one uses an IK chain instead, or rather an IK chain that leads to the next bone, so all it does is manipulate the points in space. That is like very different to what I am used to. So zero that again. I presume also if I zero these it might help. It did actually. Right, so that's the good thing. When these are all zeroed out, it does fix it. It's just that there's an issue here that causes it to become incorrectly set. Alright then, so and then the final thing I guess to discuss, this whole IK chain here has been removed and it's going to be redone according to whatever method that the tutor, like the guy who made the videos, is going to use. And I think that's probably the more productive thing from this, right? Like I've done a switch before where it switches between IK and FK, but what I want to know is, do they still use like a pole vector that's placed randomly out here? Because that was what I was taught, but it's not something I particularly liked, you know, particularly when I learned about, you know, the pole vector being done this way, and the way that it just sort of auto-corrects has been a real eye-opener for that. So I think that's the biggest thing I learned with this particular session. I'm hoping that more sessions are going to be, you know, just as productive, if not more. And yes, of course, it absolutely breaks around here. It is most definitely a part of the IKs, as you can see. So when the IKs have been reset this way, something causes it, like something that allows it to get stuck like that, means that it's trying to follow a chain. Alright, we're gonna have fun trying to resolve this one. So this is a pretty short stream. So this lot's gonna have to be completely recorrected, and hopefully with next time we're going to see a corrected pair of legs, a spine that's working, and hopefully some IK on the arms as well, done more professionally than usual. But it's a tricky one. But hopefully it will be productive. So that's pretty much the most that I have for this particular session. It's been I basically worked on this as soon as the stream ended yesterday. I've been following it, so hopefully I can get it to work properly for next meeting. Tomorrow is video games though, so what we'll be doing is playing Yomawari, and we'll be throwing another 2 hours into that. Well, before that, I'm going to be working really hard on trying to make this rig work. So if you're watching, thank you very much, and hopefully I'll have better results for you for next time. Bye for now.